Hello and welcome back to Perspectives. On today's show, we have a video wrapping up the past several Vaisakhi Day parades in Surrey, British Columbia, with the details of this year's parade and events. We also take a look at how the community's enormous charitable works have had a global impact through the World Food Programme, with Seva setting an example across the world's trouble spots. And following yesterday's story of a kirpan-wearing teacher winning the right to carry on wearing his article of faith, we have the inspirational story of a young award-winning British Sikh schoolboy who fought for the same right and won after a long, hard legal battle. And finally, we talk about Tamil Nadu, the state that's finding itself fighting the same battle against the Indian government as its own independence movement is growing in momentum. We, of course, draw the inevitable parallels with the Khalistan movement. All this and more on today's show. But joining me, as always, for Perspectives is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Angus, and good morning to our viewers out there. Thanks for all your great comments. Keep them coming in because we love to receive them. Don't forget to let us know where you're watching from so we can bring you more stories from your region as well. And right back to you, Angus.
Indeed. And James and I together will be bringing you our perspectives on the daily news affecting the Sikh community across the world. And indeed, at the end of the show, we'll be taking a look at loads of your great comments. So thank you very much, as always, for those. Right, James, let's get underway. What are you going to start us off with this morning?
Well, yesterday we took a look at the different areas in which the Sikh community helps prisoners and inmates around the world, whether it's in detention centers for immigration or just the regular prison system. Today we're going to take a look in a different direction, and that is how the Sikh philosophy and Sikhs have actually had a major impact on the World Food Programme and all of the different areas in which they have had that influence through the different areas that they serve. Now, of course, we know that the different opportunities to go to the gurdwaras, to have a meal and to break bread, as we say, but what people may not realize is just how involved the Sikh community is when it comes to humanitarian causes, when it comes to natural disasters, war zones, and so forth. So I thought I would just cover that a bit tonight about their inspiring ways in which they make a better world through compassion and community and helping to bring food to those in need. Now, as the world confronts rising inequity, humanitarian crises, and environmental challenges, it's more vital than ever to turn traditions rooted in service, justice, and humanity. The Sikh Heritage Month, we celebrate the enduring global influence of Sikhi, a spiritual path that continues to guide individuals and institutions alike towards a better tomorrow. So as we see here, this was actually in Poland at the border with Ukraine in 2022. And hundreds, and if not thousands of volunteers, depending on which border crossing you were at, were manning stations at the borders to welcome the Ukrainian refugees into Poland. Now, they didn't just stand there with signs saying welcome. They took food, they took doctors and medicine, they had veterinarians, they had clothing, they had warming stations, resting tents with cots and blankets. I mean, the list goes on and on. Now, they weren't there just during the day or such. They were there 24 hours a day. And as the refugees made it across the border, sometimes after waiting hours upon hours in freezing cold temperatures after making the long journey, some of them with their family pets, their grandchildren, and so forth. So it was a very tough journey to get to the border of Poland, let alone to get across. Now, as you can see, this bus here was heading to Germany, so there were groups from all around the world that came together along those borders to help. And of course, I had the extreme pleasure of meeting a lot of the Sikh community who was there through Sikhs United or United Sikhs, and they were just doing amazing things to feed. They had massive tents set up with fans and blowers and heaters, just really there to help all of these people. When you think about the mass numbers of people crossing the border into Poland at that time, it created a crisis not only in Poland but other parts of Europe as well, because of the fact that their population, just in Warsaw alone, we'll use it as an example, Warsaw's population almost doubled within a month. given the fleeing refugees from Ukraine after Russia's invasion in early 2022. Now, I had the pleasure, as I said, of being there and meeting some of these people, and was just really touched and inspired by the way that they gave of themselves. There were Sikhs from Seattle, from Germany, from Switzerland, from just everywhere, and it was just amazing. Now, we know that Sikhi was founded in the 15th century Punjab by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and it's more than a religion. It is a lifestyle. It's built on universal values. These values are compassion, selflessness, equity, humility, and of course community service that resonate deeply across borders and belief systems. In a time of unprecedented change, Sikhs offer timeless wisdom on how to care for one another, uplift the vulnerable, and act with integrity. And this is something that has really worn off on the rest of the world as a leadership role. Perhaps the most visible expression of Sikh's global humanitarian legacy is langar. That's what we were just speaking of. And that's the tradition of the free community kitchen. In gurdwaras around the world, from Vancouver to Nairobi, London to Delhi, millions are fed daily without question and without discrimination. And that is such a huge lesson. Now, langar is more than food. It is a statement of personal and human dignity, a rejection of the caste, status, and division. It's a practice that has inspired global organizations like the World Food Program that is built community-based systems that prioritize inclusion, humility, and shared responsibility. And that sounds familiar, doesn't it? The influence of the Sikhi extends well beyond kitchens and temples across the globe. Sikh individuals and communities are at the forefront of disaster relief, as we were just touching on, as well as refugee assistance, environmental protection, and human rights advocacy, which we talked a lot about last night. So if you didn't catch yesterday's show, by all means, check it out. During the refugee crisis in Europe, Sikh volunteers organized mass food distribution, medical support, safe passage services at border points, and often reaching those left behind by the governments or overwhelmed NGOs. And there were lineups. Let me tell you, to witness it, it was just, it was heartbreaking to see people having to be forced to flee their own country, to flee their home, their properties that were handed down from their ancestors, and the culture that was being destroyed at the hands of the Russians was just heartbreaking. Now, Sikh Heritage Month is not just a time for celebration, it's a call to remember, reflect, and act. The biggest part is to act. The teachings of the Gurus Nanak Dev Ji and the Gurus that followed are not relics of the past, but living blueprints for a just society. And we see that again and again. So here in this image is nighttime. It is about -6 degrees. It's late March, early April. And these are the buses lined up on the Ukraine side of the border. So this is actually in Ukraine, and they are waiting. And when I was on this trip, I was actually crossing the border with this group, and it took us probably about 12 or 13 hours between the time we arrived at the border to the time that we actually were able to cross over into Poland. So it shows, how cold it is, how much struggle. Excuse me, and that was only the last part of the journey. So many people traveled for days just to get there, and were just exhausted. They were cold, they were hungry, and of course the Sikh community came together and welcomed them with open arms, fed them, clothed them, and made sure that they were all in good health. As I said, they also had the doctors on hand to look after any needs. They had a medical area set up, and then they also helped to make sure that people had the medications that they required, that little babies had formula and diapers and all of that stuff. So again, Angus, I can't reiterate how much respect that is garnered around the world by all of the amazing philanthropic work that they do there in Poland, but also around the globe.
Indeed, and we often talk about the goodness of Sikhi, and it is based on the most fundamental principles of humanity. It is based on selfless service. It is based on helping your fellow human being. There is an obligation as a Sikh to do your absolute best to help others around you, to do this selfless service, as they call it. And it is absolutely, it's so visible every time that there is any form of human tragedy, whether it's an earthquake, a flood, a volcano, natural disaster, or even a war zone, a man-made disaster. You will always find the Sikh community there in some form or another. And the thing that strikes me is I didn't know this until I got involved with Satellite TV. I'd never even heard of the Sikh community getting involved in charitable work. And this, I think, is part of the problem, is that almost by their very nature, this selfless service means they do not promote themselves. Why would they? All they care about specifically is helping their fellow human beings. They don't want to help themselves. Again, selfishness is seen as a sin within Sikhi. It is selflessness that is the good part and the obligation of Sikhi. So, of course, naturally, by their own philosophy, they do not promote themselves as a community. And this, sadly, is really actually, I suppose, where we come in, James. It is up to people like us to highlight to the world, look, do you realise what the Sikh community are bringing the world? This is what they do. So wherever you see a disaster, whether man-made or natural, you will see the representatives from the Sikh community dishing out food, resources, help, medicines, whatever it has. Now, we've all heard of the Red Cross, the Red Crescent, the Médecins Frontières. These organisations get huge media coverage. They are enormous organisations. They're multi-billion-dollar organisations, and in itself, it has attracted an awful lot of criticisms. The amount of money flowing through these organisations and their huge executive level, very well-paid executives, drawing in millions, multi-millions of dollars of contributions, and questions have been raised. Well, where do those contributions go? But of course, they have this massive publicity machine. All the Red Cross and these mainstream charities have enormous media coverage because they have these huge PR machines, well-funded PR machines. A lot of those charitable contributions go in towards promoting the charities. And yet the reason why Sikh charities are just never heard of outside the community, or rarely heard of, is because they don't promote themselves. They channel every single contribution into the Sikh community, into the Sikh charities, goes effectively towards helping others, because that is the central philosophy. There is no greed, there is no selfishness. It's purely channeled 100% into helping others because it is driven by simple Sikh philosophy. That's the difference, James. And I think really it is up to people like us just to highlight to the rest of the world, look what the Sikh community do, look what they contribute to humanity.
Absolutely, Angus, and that's why I'm very happy to make sure that I spread the word about the amazing work that they do. They are just so humble when it comes to their charitable contributions around the world. So I like to give them that spotlight because they definitely deserve it, and they are heroes in today's world. And they don't get enough appreciation for that and enough exposure. I think that is important for people to understand. So with that said, though, Angus, we are going to continue on talking about how special it is at this time of year with Vaisakhi and the Sikh Heritage Month, in the fact that, of course, we know that there is the major Vaisakhi parade coming up this weekend in Surrey, British Columbia. It is the largest one outside of India. They do anticipate over 500,000 people this year to attend, and that's just amazing. For our viewers in the Surrey area looking, I just made a couple of notes here that we all know where the parade will start, and of course that is at the Gurdwara Sahib Dasmash Darbar, and that is located at about 128th Street and 85th Avenue. The parade will start there at approximately 9 a.m. and it will continue until 5 p.m. It will travel along 128th Street to 85th Avenue, turning towards 76th Avenue, back to 124th, and then back to 82nd, and of course making the way back to the Gurdwara. So again, don't forget that it is this Saturday, and make sure that you get out there. Here's a little highlight video from previous Vaisakhi parades, and this one here actually happens to be 2023, as I try to get out there every year. The one year I did miss, of course, was when I was over in Poland and Ukraine, so of course I had other footage that if you haven't seen the interview that I did with some of the volunteers in Poland during that crisis, I encourage you to go back and watch some of our older shows, and you should be able to find that one as well. Go here first. See all that stuff? Take care, thank you. So as you can see, a lot of excitement to be had, a lot of fun. You can see the music, the colors, the vibrancy, the excitement of not only the Sikh community, but the entire community. People come out from all different religions, all different backgrounds, and they are so happy to be there as a community. But it shows the support that the Sikh community has outside of that area. People come in from all across Canada and parts of the US for this event, and it is just a major celebration. They also have things such as in this image that's on the screen here. This is where they actually tie the turbans and wrap them and such. And it's amazing to watch because you don't realize how much material is actually used in the turbans. And yeah, it was really a neat thing to watch. And these little guys here were lined up to get theirs done. And let me tell you, they were troopers because they sat there while, you know, thousands and thousands of people are watching them get this done. So their patience and such was really cool. And this little guy in the green was just having a great time. Now, here's an image you can see with the mass crowds. As I said, it gets anywhere between a quarter and a half a million people out every year. It's been growing and expanding ever since it launched in 1999, which was the first formally organized parade in Surrey. And now, as I said, they do expect it to surpass over 500,000 people this year, which is just phenomenal. Here you can see another image, and this is a part of the music presentations and entertainment that happens there. And it really, you know, from the children up to the adults and even the seniors, everybody takes part in sharing their culture, in sharing their history, and of course, just welcoming anyone and everyone. There's food, there's, there's, as I said, the entertainment. You can go around and talk to different Sikhs within. And one memorable moment from last year, Angus, was this elderly Sikh gentleman was helping to prepare food, but he stopped doing that. He saw me as a Caucasian guy in the crowd. And he actually came over very emotional and gave me a hug. And he said that he wanted to hug every Canadian for allowing him to be here. And you know, what he didn't realize is that we should be hugging him and being grateful to the Sikh community for all of the major contributions that they have brought to Canada and shared with us, Angus.
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, I love seeing these Vaisakhi videos because the whole occasion is so invested in enthusiasm. It's a family occasion. You know, you can just sense the atmosphere is always so positive, so wonderful. It's really wonderful to see. And again, when you see so many smiling faces, all united in celebrating, obviously, the birth of the Khalsa, but also there's always this edge. I always sense this sort of edge of other things involved, which of course is the political edge, because Vaisakhi is used the world over to, of course, inject the element of Sikh issues. Of course, there are so many issues that we do talk about on a regular basis, and of course, many of the floats, quite often, and particularly like we saw in your video, many of the floats do include big banners and photos of shaheeds, past martyrs, of course, whether it's Bindram Vali or whoever, who literally given their lives for the cause, for the Sikh cause. And I think it is an occasion, of course, to celebrate the birth of the Khalsa and just Sikh in general, but it is a reminder for so many people of what has gone before and what is continuing these sorts of issues, because of course they do affect a large part of the Sikh community on a daily basis, and particularly the threats from transnational oppression, the ongoing threats from transnational oppression. And it's things like that that do, I think, just add that little edge of reminders to the community and to the world at large that, look, these are the issues that we still face. And I think, again, it's all about visibility. First of all, yes, it's getting the community visible out in the wider world. This is who we are, this is what we represent, etc., and all the positive things of that. But at the same time, it is actually educating. Again, this word comes up again. It's educating the wider community, the wider world. Look, these issues are affecting us as a community. We are under threat from India. They are causing us problems. People are dying in our community because of transnational oppression. So there is always this slight edge to it, and I think the balance is usually kept just about right. Of course, there is the large part of celebration, but ultimately there is this edge of this is the threat that we are under, and they balance that just right, just to remind people, look, these are the threats that we, as a happy, wonderful, selfless, serving community, these are the threats that we are under and we suffer on a daily basis. But James, yeah, as I say, it's lovely to see these parades. They represent so much goodness.
Absolutely, and I'm excited to be there on Saturday. So again, if you are out at the Vaisakhi parade in Surrey and you see me out there with the camera, come over and say hello. Don't be shy. I always enjoy meeting people. And yeah, come on over, shake my hand. I'm happy to meet you, especially if you're viewers of our show. That makes me even more excited to meet you. So yeah, we'll see you there on Saturday.
Absolutely. Right, James, let's move on to my first story. And gosh, we talk a lot about Khalistan, obviously, and the whole Khalistan movement, which is, well, it's grown in momentum massively over recent years. And of course, in conjunction, in parallel with that, we often talk about Tamil Nadu. Now, there are many areas, many regions within India that have talked about autonomy, that have even campaigned for autonomy in years past, and they have run parallel with the Khalistan movement. And of course, central government in India, in Delhi, have lived in fear of all these separatist movements right across India. Of course, the Khalistan movement has been certainly one of the most high profile, and in recent years is probably the most high profile, and is, I would say, probably the most successful one running at the moment. But of course, Tamil Nadu comes in on a regular basis, and I often draw parallels to what's going on in Tamil Nadu. And in fact, my podcast that I recorded at the end of last week, and actually hopefully will be uploaded today or tomorrow, with Bhajan Singh Binder, we do talk quite a bit about Tamil Nadu and the separatist movement growing there, because the parallels running there are massive. Of course, they suffer the same issues as the people of Punjab do. They are under the same kosh, the same Delhi kosh as Khalistan, sorry, the slip of the tongue, as Punjab is, because again, Delhi recognises Tamil Nadu secessionist movement as a potential threat to the integrity of India's borders. So they are undertaking the same methods, the same methodology to attack the Tamils in Tamil Nadu. So I just want to do just a quick rundown. I mean, I could do a whole show on this. There's so much to talk about. But I just want to do a quick sort of summary of what the Tamil Nadu resistance movement, let's call it, basically the secessionist, the independence movement, a little bit of its history and what's happening today. And it's in the context of modern day India. Now, Tamil Nadu has traditionally had quite I would say, an interesting relationship with the Indian Union. The state has traditionally resisted this cultural and political dominance by northern India, and particularly the Hindi imposition policies that have been aggressively pushed by successive governments from Delhi. Yes, how familiar is this indeed? And well, if we go back to the 1960s, because of course it has quite a powerful history, it was the early Dravidian movement back in the early 60s that initially called for a separate, what they called Dravida Nadu. This is a state for southern Indians who felt marginalised by the Hindi-speaking north. But the demand was actually, it sort of evolved away from a simple independence movement, this Dravidian movement of independence, into just basically demanding, look, we want more autonomy within India. We want more control of our own decision making. However, more recently, the current Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, M.K. Stalin, there's a name, he's actually in his 70s. He's quite elderly, this guy, but he's quite a powerful, charismatic figure. And this new leader, this new Chief Minister, Stalin, he has increased the demands for self-rule, and it has actually risen much more powerfully in recent years. And there have been some particular drivers why this is, and again, it's very interesting how it parallels the Khalistan movement. The drivers behind the Tamil independence movement are actually promoting the Tamil independence movement, and they are the same drivers in many ways that have driven the Khalistan movement. Now, firstly, the main one, the one I think that probably reaches the mainstream media more commonly, is what they call the budget allocation disputes. Basically, Tamil Nadu is a very wealthy state. It is a very economically powerful state. It is. It actually generates more revenue and contributes more revenue to Delhi than it receives back. And again, I think even I've reported on this fairly regularly over the last year or two, that Tamil Nadu feels aggrieved, saying, look, we are this engine, this economic engine for India, and we're generating all this revenue, yet in return, we're actually getting less proportionally back from Delhi to feed and to feed our own needs here in Tamil Nadu. So that, of course, unsurprisingly, has created resentment. And then, of course, this argument say, look, we should actually, our own revenue, we should keep it for ourselves, and we should have our own state and our own country, our own sovereignty. Now, the next one, again, very much paralleling the Punjab's problems, is this anti-Hindi sentiment. Now, Modi campaigned on his last election on a Hindi-first policy. He campaigned on very much, look, we are a Hindu majority nation. We Hindus must unite to push India forward. Well, of course, all that did was immediately marginalise places like Tamil Nadu and Punjab and places like this. It marginalised the minorities. And they said, well, hang on a second, we're not necessarily Hindu majority, so why should we support this? So, of course, it has created divisions once again between the minorities. And unsurprisingly, the Tamil people just said, look, no, we're not Hindus, and we refuse to accept Hindi, for example, as a national language, of course, being pushed by Delhi. And again, how reflective of this is in the Punjab, where again the Hindi language is being imposed upon the next generation of young Punjabis, and they're saying, look, what about our own Punjabi language that you're trying to drive out? That is our heritage, that is our identity. Of course, language is so inherent in a culture. Same with the Tamils. The Tamil language is they are trying to drive out the Tamil language and impose Hindi as the language across Tamil Nadu. And of course, as I've talked about, the economic disparities. Tamil Nadu does see itself as what it calls a progressive, industrialised and self-sufficient state. In other words, it does not need northern India. It doesn't need Delhi. And of course, the cow belt, the central belt of India, again, primarily the Hindi-speaking states, are not economically as self-sufficient as Tamil Nadu is. And they do rely much more on federal subsidies. And of course, therefore, you've got this feeding of the industrialised south of Tamil Nadu, feeding economically the cow belt, the Hindi-speaking states up north. And again, they're saying, well, why should we? And then, of course, we come back down to simple politics. BJP's political control. Oh, yes, how familiar this is. Now, the BJP does not have a historical presence in Tamil Nadu. It is seen naturally as an outside force trying to impose its own values, its own northern Indian values, on a southern India state, with, of course, its own distinct heritage, its Dravidian background. So those are really the key drivers, and again, how much they reflect what is going on in the Punjab. Now, they have claimed that there is this, what they call this Hindi invasion, where, of course, the BJP have tried very hard to mainstream Hindi across Tamil Nadu. And unsurprisingly, it's met with a huge backlash. And politicians within Tamil Nadu are arguing, look, our jobs, our businesses, and even our government positions are being taken over by Hindi speakers from the north. And by doing that, they've been pushing out their own native indigenous Tamils from these same jobs. And it's particularly happening in really key sectors like banking, law enforcement. Again, how reflective of this, of the Punjab, same thing again. So all these key social infrastructure areas like banking and law, and of course law enforcement, these really important areas are being taken over by outsiders from the north, by Hindi speakers, and of course they are in turn pushing out the local Tamils, and by doing that, control is being taken over by the north. And the Tamil Nadu government has repeatedly opposed Hindi as a compulsory subject in schools, and as a result, anti-Hindi protests are now routine. They are regularly seen across Tamil Nadu. But it's not all about language, and again, how reflective of Punjab. It's about cultural preservation and Tamil identity. In other words, these protests are saying you've got to stop trying to destroy our own culture, our own identity, because our identity and culture is based around our social structures, around our languages, etc. And the Delhi powers are trying to remove that. They're trying to bury it and destroy it. And political factions have gone as far as rejecting the presence of North Indians in Tamil Nadu altogether. So indeed, we're actually seeing these growing divisions that are growing so deep that when outsiders, when the Northern Indians appear in Tamil Nadu, they're actually almost driven out. They're saying, look, you do not belong here. And the BJP has actually failed to do anything about this. They've failed to bridge between Tamil Nadu and the north. Instead, the BJP policies have deliberately or mistakenly, we don't know, but certainly the result is that they are driving these divisions between the areas, and it is basically this aggressive centralisation policy where they're trying to take complete control of Tamil Nadu from Delhi. So, this demand for separation has grown, but how serious is it? Well, Tamil Nadu's ruling Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam, the DMK party, has not officially or publicly called for secession, but the calls for more autonomy are growing. So again, at the moment, it is based around, look, we need more autonomy, we need more self-control, more control over our own decision-making. The language of self-rule, however, is taking more of a centre stage, and these ongoing budgetary disputes with Delhi are providing, of course, further justification for this demand. It's very clear-cut. It's a very easy argument to win. Now, Tamil Nadu's economic strength, its historical separatist sentiment based on the Dravidian movement, and of course its cultural distinctiveness, like in Punjab with the Sikhs, it is not unthinkable that the state could push for a referendum or greater autonomy. And of course, if they get greater autonomy, that is a stepping stone towards eventual independence. Now, what would a Tamil Nadu independence movement mean for Sri Lanka? Because, of course, looking at the map of southern India, and of course the Dravidian movement, it does actually involve Sri Lanka just over the water, just over the straits on the island of Sri Lanka, formerly Ceylon. Now, the Tamil movement, of course, does have its feet in northern Sri Lanka as well. So, of course, an independence movement probably would not just be southern India, it would also make demands for the northern part of Sri Lanka. Now, it would, of course, then promote Tamil nationalism in Sri Lanka. Of course, there was a dreadful civil war that was fought at the end of the 20th century, early part of the 21st century, which was driven by Tamil separatism. The LTTE fought for an independent Tamil Elam in the north and east of Sri Lanka. Now, if that resurfaces, it could reignite the separatist sentiments among Sri Lankan Tamils. So, of course, if Tamil Nadu in India pushes for independence, it could reignite that awful civil war that happened in Sri Lanka. So that is a potential danger. And of course, if that does happen, then there could be a Tamil alliance across borders. And this could happen across to Sri Lanka, and it could call for unification with an independent Tamil state, and this would then create a direct political and security challenge for Sri Lanka's own territorial integrity. So in other words, it's not just going to affect India, it's going to affect Sri Lanka. It does then, of course, have wider implications across the globe. An independent Tamil Nadu will, of course, have support around the world, again reflecting what's happening in the Punjab. The diaspora, the Tamil diaspora is, of course, particularly extensive in Canada, the UK, places like Malaysia. Again, how reflective that is of the Sikh community and the Sikh diaspora. It would likely attract foreign powers like China into the party, who would no doubt like to get involved in this. We do know that Sri Lanka, for example, many of its ports are controlled by Chinese interests, and that has caused a lot of concern in Delhi. And China would see a breakaway of Tamil Nadu as an opportunity to get its feet and its claws deeper into southern India and Sri Lanka. So there is a geopolitical impact of this happening. And then, of course, the economic disruptions would of course, be felt right across both Sri Lanka and India, especially in fishing, shipping and agriculture. So the separatist movement, if indeed it does lead to conflict, could disrupt cross-border trade and economic stability right across southern India. So how will Modi handle Tamil Nadu? It does, of course, create a bit of a dilemma. And the BJP does face a rather large challenge. Now, Modi's, I would say, traditionally strong-arm tactics, which worked in Kashmir, where, of course, he poured in 500,000 troops and he beat Jammu and Kashmir into submission through just sheer brute force, removal of human rights, etc. And it worked to some extent. It worked to the extent that it did suppress the people. It removed their human rights. They were cowed into physical submission. It doesn't look good. It actually damaged India's reputation. And it has actually created, in my opinion, it's created a problem for the future, because you just cannot beat people, human beings, into submission. Eventually, they do rise up and beat their dominating power. So I think that is only a temporary solution. But Tamil Nadu, if you try that in Tamil Nadu, it probably won't work. That same brute force tactic, you can't just pour troops into Tamil Nadu, because the region is very different to J&K. It's highly educated, it's politically active, it is politically mature. It has a very powerful linguistic and cultural heritage that I feel will not bow down to a simple brute force tactics from the north. So, what are the possible outcomes? What are Modi's options here? Well, he could grant the region more autonomy. He could increase Tamil Nadu's budget allocation, give them more money, basically bribe them into submission. That could work. He could take the tactic of repression. He could crack down on Tamil nationalist movements, as he has done on trying to do with Khalistan. But of course, by doing that, he risks protests, civil unrest, and further alienates the Tamil people. Again, how reflective of Punjab, the Khalistan movement. That's what he's doing in the Punjab to try and suppress the Khalistan movement. All it's doing is actually promoting the Khalistan movement, and it's further alienating the Sikh community from Delhi. He could try negotiation, just simple political negotiation. He might try to strike a deal with Tamil Nadu's leaders. Look, we'll give you more control. Again, it's all about bribing. Look, we'll give you more money, but we'll also give you more political control to try and keep a lid on the demands for autonomy. And ultimately, it could lead to this slow march to independence. If the BJP doesn't do something about this, it is likely that Tamil Nadu's push for autonomy will grow. And of course, that does then form that first stepping stone into ultimately independence. And if Tamil Nadu moves towards secession, breaking away, it could trigger a ripple effect across the world, across the diaspora. And it does have a large diaspora across the world. And it's no doubt, like with the Khalistan movement, Tamils across the world will unite behind it and will push for independence. Now, Tamil Nadu's defiance against the North is not just a political protest. It is actually, once again, and it's interesting that the Tamils describe it as an existential struggle for their own identity, culture and economic justice. It's actually also, it's an existential struggle on the other side for the Brahmins, for India, the Brahmanical control of India. And again, another parallel with Khalistan is that the Tamils are fighting for their own culture and identity and their own regional autonomy, just like the Sikhs are in Punjab. but it forms an existential threat, not just to them, but it's an existential threat to Brahmanical control of India. This is why the Brahmins are terrified of India breaking up, because if Khalistan breaks away, the Tamils no doubt will want to do the same, and it will destroy that existing structure of India, because all these other regions will then say, look, we want our own autonomy as well. It does have a huge impact on Sri Lanka because the stakes are very high for Sri Lanka. We've talked about the civil war that they suffered, again, through the Tamil independence movement. So that could have, again, huge geopolitical repercussions across that whole South Asian region. And, of course, the maritime issue there with the ports and China's intentions to encircle India as well. So there are the dangers of that. And then, of course, the implications for the West. So it does have that issue. And whether this crisis does lead to genuine separation or it is resolved through basic bribery, I would say tamil bribery, one thing is certain: Tamil Nadu's resistance to BJP rule, it's not just a regional dispute, it's what the Tamils themselves call a defining battle for the future of India itself. Absolutely, James. This is a fight for the Brahmins. It is a fight for their control of India, which they were handed on a plate by the British Empire. This artificial construct of India, which is a relatively young concept. Or it could lead to what the Tamils are fighting for and the Sikhs are fighting for and other areas are now demanding, is that we want our own regions, we want control of our own areas, we want to make our own decisions, we want our own economies. Basically, we want our own sovereignty because that is what we deserve. We are separate identities. We are not Indians, we are Tamils. We are not Indians, we are Sikhs. We are Khalistanis. That's what this is all about, James. I see the Tamil Nadu movement growing. It is growing in parallel to the Khalistan movement. And to me, certainly there should be alliances between these two movements because they have a goal in common, James.
Absolutely, Angus. And we've got to realize that, the world is full of hotspots where there are people struggling for their independence. And that is true in several different countries, whether it's in Africa or in India. It doesn't matter where you're looking. But what does matter is, as we watch the fight and the struggle for Khalistan, it's going to have an impact on the Tamil homeland. It's going to have an impact in other regions as well. And that's where the Sikh community are leaders. And I think that a lot of people are almost looking at them as a big brother, so to speak. And the fact that if they can accomplish the sovereignty and the independence, then these other nations will definitely look to them to not only as leaders and big brothers, but also to find out what worked for them in terms of the sovereignty, in terms of the referendum. Now, we know in Canada that there is a lot of unrest and a lot of civil issues that come up with different campaigns in different nations. And that's why I think that adds to the leadership role of the Khalistan movement, is the simple fact that it is democratic, it's peaceful, and it is showing how that can be done without the violence. And it's hard for a lot of people in Canada to really understand the level of conflict and civil unrest that can come with issues like this, because when a lot of the older generation, and speaking for myself as well, and the gray hair shows that, but speaking for that generation, we've seen where the Parti Québécois and other parts of Quebec have, had that struggle where they've wanted to have referendums and have had referendums on the separation of Quebec. But at the end of the day, they still have some autonomy and self-regulation and self-government there. That is a lot different than what we're seeing in nations, whether that is the Tamil homelands or in the Punjab for the Khalistan, the future of Khalistan, Angus.
Indeed, as I say, the parallels between the Tamil fight for secession or even autonomy is so reflective of the whole Khalistan movement as well. And as I say, keep an eye out for my interview with Bhajan Singh Binder, which hopefully will be up in the next 24 or 48 hours, because we do talk about actually a hugely powerful academic leader, a Tamil, stood up recently, and he basically said, look, if the whole of India followed Sikhi, if we were a Sikh nation, we would already now be a superpower. So again, there are these interesting dynamics going on in India at the moment, and as we keep saying, James, I have no doubt that it really is heading moving in one inevitable direction, and that is just basically the demand for independence of all these separate regions. They are these separate cultural identities, and you can't beat human nature, is what I often say. So anyway, James, let's move on as time marches on, and as time has marched on. Of course, this was such a big, important story. I've used too much time, so I'm going to drop my second story, and I'll do that next week. So keep an eye out for that interesting young lad, the British schoolboy who beat the system to be allowed to wear his kirpan at school. But anyway, I'll cover that story next week. Right, James, let us move on to our comments column. And as always, a huge thank you to our wonderful audience for the comments that have poured in. And Sharon Singh starts us off with just a simple comment which made me chuckle. Keep it going. Oh, yes, it does. And I don't know exactly the tone in which this comment was delivered, James, but it's almost like, look, just please keep going, keep it going. It really is hard work, but keep going, James.
I will take that as well as a statement of encouragement, and we appreciate it. Thank you for that comment.
I don't know if it's been lost in translation, but certainly, yes, absolutely. It's an absolutely perfect sentiment. Keep it going. We are keeping going as long as we can. Now, lovely diving board. This was interesting. Thank you for this comment. Modi has started riots in West Bengal. He will do another Gujarat. Well, of course, the reference there to Gujarat, the butcher of Gujarat. Narendra Modi was banned from entering the United States in the early part of the 21st century because he presided over terrible riots in Gujarat with the Islamic population there, in which many people died, and he was the finger of blame was pointed at Modi at the time as Chief Minister of Gujarat at the time. Now, of course, there are these riots happening in West Bengal. What is it all about? Well, thank you for pointing this out. Just for those who might be wondering what on earth it's about. Violent protests are erupting in the area about a controversial Muslim land law in West Bengal. And it's killed at least 3 people so far, and the count is increasing. Hundreds are fleeing from their homes because of these dreadful clashes. And it's because the Indian Parliament, the Lok Sabha, passed a controversial bill called the Waqf Amendment Bill that will make changes in the management of Waqf properties. These are assets donated by Muslims for religious or charitable purposes, for example, mosques, schools or orphanages. The law would seek to make changes in the Waqf boards, which oversees these properties, high value properties, and it's affecting over 750,000 properties across the country. Now, Muslim groups and opposition political parties have condemned the law and said it's aimed to alienate and discriminate against Muslims. Well, here we are again. Mr. Modi and officials in his party have denied these allegations and claim that the law is aimed at pro-Muslim reform. Well, clearly it's not, James. Here we are once again. It's yet another law passed in the Lok Sabha, the Hindu-dominated Lok Sabha, that is persecuting one of its minority populations, the Muslims again. And unsurprisingly, the Muslims are rising up saying, you just cannot do this. You are trying to destroy our culture, our way of life, James.
Absolutely. And if you take a look across the border from India, you look at Pakistan, they are working hard to ensure that that people from Punjab and other regions of India, especially the Sikhs, are able to go at this special time of year to cross over to the historic places of worship and landmarks. So it shows the Muslim-controlled the Muslim-controlled Pakistan is welcoming and going out of their way to try to work with the people of India, and yet India seems to be doing nothing but oppressing them and trying to force them into submission, Angus.
Indeed they are. So let's move on to Critics Corner, and Nearbang is back. Actually, thank you, Nearbang, for coming back, daring to enter the Dragon's Den again with your comments. And you said, so you think it's the birthright of Canadians to interfere in internal matters of another country, which you've nothing to do with, and follows that out with, look, Canadians of any faith or ethnicity should respect the sovereignty of a friendly country like India. If India isn't friendly, then declare war on it. Well, I think Nearbang, and I think, James, I think you responded to this actually in the comment.
I did, yeah.
I think the answer, Nearbang, is look, actually, the people who are what you accuse of interfering in India, they are actually Punjabis. They are interfering in the politics of Punjabi. They actually happen to be in Canada because they fled the Punjab in fear. That's why they're in Canada. Many of them are now Canadian citizens, but they only become Canadian citizens because they've been driven out. They have been so persecuted in the Punjab that they've been driven out to places like Canada and other countries. And they're trying to interfere in not just India, they're interfering in the politics of their own land. Actually, they still see the Punjab as their own land. So really, James, that's what it's all about from the Punjabi perspective.
Absolutely, Angus. And my response was quite simple and straightforward, just saying that if people do not understand how the issues of India are impacting the world, whether it's foreign interference, transnational repression, or their human rights records, if you don't realize how that impacts the rest of the world outside of India, then that's a part of the problem as well. And that's where you need to be more educated on the global issues and impacts of that wave.
Yeah, and I think the contrast is that the Canadian Sikhs who were interfering in India are effectively, many of them identify as Punjabis. They are interfering in their homeland. So it's not an external influence from another country, another country's citizens. It's actually, they are their own people. They are Punjabis they're interfering. But the other way around, it's transnational oppression. India is interfering in the sovereignty of Canada, the US, the UK, etc. They are a separate nation interfering with another sovereign nation. That's the contrast. So I hope, Neerbang, you understand that. I hope that does make it clear. But thank you anyway for your contributions in the comments. And Canadian politics, James. Of course, we did a lot on Canadian politics. You gave a really useful overview of what's going on in this election coming up very shortly. Right. And 5AAB says, look, vote for someone who will treat everyone equally, or vote for someone who's pro-Modi. And then what you reckon is in 5 years, Canada will end up the same as India. You'll have cities like Calcutta in Vancouver. Basically, Toronto will end up like Calcutta, and Vancouver will end up the second biggest slum, Dravi 2.0, James.
Absolutely. You know, I just look at this and laugh going, how ridiculous is that? I mean, come on now. We're trying to make a better world, not just here in Canada, not just in India, but a better world to lift people out of poverty, to help with the food security, to help with housing and all of that. So, yeah, if they want to start making the comparisons, then I'm going to look the other way and say, hey, you know what? I think that if India, whether it's New Delhi or others, are like Vancouver, that's a great thing because that means that there's improvement. So let's look for the positive and how we can achieve that.
Yeah, and I think that basically the key point there that 5AAB is making is that if you vote for the Conservatives, you're just inviting India into the control of Canada. So his or hers, I don't know. 5AAB's particular political preferences are pretty clear there, as are Janagra's, who will not vote for Pierre Poilievre. Janagra says Justin Trudeau is truly a Sikh friend. Indeed, and indeed the Liberals. Now, James, I would of course highlight there that, Mark Carney, you know my feelings about Mark Carney. I'm deeply suspicious about the what drives Mark Carney. I don't think it's necessarily the same things that drove Justin Trudeau. And Mustan Singh Dulai also puts their faith in the Liberal Party. Well, James, is it Mark Carney or is it the Liberals, or are they one and the same?
Well, do you know, I personally agree with you there, Angus. I don't know what the angle or what the result's going to be with Mark Carney, but I do believe that there is enough support within the Liberal Party for the Sikh community and other minorities across Canada that they will continue to see support from the Liberal government or the Liberal Party, regardless as to who's at the helm of the party. But yeah, definitely I see a big difference between Mark Carney and the leadership of Justin Trudeau on those issues.
Well, it'll be interesting to see which direction Carney takes the party after this, depending on what happens. But anyway, the final comment goes to Nirmal Singh. Thank you, Nirmal, for your comment. And this absolutely sums it up beautifully. Look, the only solution is Khalistan. There's nothing less than Khalistan. I think that really is the solution to the world's problems, James.
There you go, right? And I think that is a huge, huge statement, more than people realize. Imagine how peaceful and how harmonious the world would be if they followed a lot of the principles that are just enshrined in Sikhi.
Absolutely. So let's hope the rest of the world manage to understand that and align behind what we believe is the right way for the world to go, and that is Khalistan. But on that very positive note, we'll bring Perspectives to a close for another day. Thanks so much for watching. Please don't forget to keep those comments coming in. Do let us know anything that you'd like to like us to talk about. Don't forget you can message us directly at message@satellitetv.com on anything you want to bring to our attention. But in the meantime, thanks so much for watching. That's the end of another week. Watch out for the podcast going up in the next day or so. But in the meantime, it's a goodbye from me and it's a goodbye from James.
Stay safe, everyone.
You have, of course, been watching Perspectives. We will see you next time.